Jon Kenny obituary, portraits of Irish eccentricity that mingled hilarity with sadness. Jon Kenny, who has died at the age of 66, was one of Ireland's most beloved comedians. His humour fondly celebrated archetypes of small-town and rural Ireland but was often electrified by a surrealist streak suggestive of a more uproarious Flann O'Brien. He was also a respected screen actor, appearing both in comedies such as Father Ted and straight dramas including Angela's Ashes and Les Misérables and the Oscar-nominated animation Wolf Walkers. Kenny will be best remembered as one half of the Unbelievables, a duo he began with Pat Shortt, whom he met in the late 1980s. They met when Kenny was looking for a saxophone player to add a splash to his comedy routines. They hit it off, and after several months of coaxing, Shortt, saxophone in tow, agreed to join his collaborator on stage. They were a chalk and cheese pairing. Kenny was naturally voluble, always with a gag or impersonation to hand, while Shortt could be shy when the spotlight was off. In an early interview on B.B. Baskin's RT Chats How, it is Kenny who does most of the talking and tells all the jokes, while Shortt plays the straight man. But Kenny wasn't just a natural comedian. He was a talented musician who continued to write and perform songs throughout his life. He also had a successful screen and stage career. His screen roles tended to be cameos, but he always made the most of them. In a 1996 episode of Father Ted, he carved out a piece of Irish comedy history as Eurovision presenter Fred Rickwood, a hilariously baroque figure who rambled incoherently offstage yet was as slick as lightning when the cameras rolled. He will be forever associated with Father Ted, but he excelled in straight parts too. As brutish Thénardier, he traded lines with Liam Neeson's Jean Valjean in a 1988 adaptation of Victor Hugo's Les Misérables. He voiced a woodcutter in Wolf Walkers and portrayed Jerry the Fiddler in Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin, his deadpan performance a perfect conduit for McDonagh's bittersweet dialogue. Kenny was born in 1957 in Hospital, 30 kilometers south of Limerick City. He had a brother, Tom, and sisters, and Joan and Deirdre. His parents ran a family drapery on the main street and a pub at the opposite side of the town. Kenny's father, John, died when John was young, and his mother, Mary, raised the family while running the business. "She was an amazing woman," he would later say. "I don't think I realized it at the time, how difficult it was." His childhood in hospital would prove a huge influence on his comedy. A shop in rural Ireland was the perfect ringside seat from which to observe the quirks of ordinary people. It helped him develop an ear for the eccentricities and joys of small-town life. Kenny had dyslexia as a child and left school, the vocational secondary and hospital, before his 16th birthday to pursue his love of performance. The following year he and some friends formed the glam rock group Gimmick. With Kenny playing bass and singing, they made a splash, appearing on Shea Healy's Hullabaloo on RT and supporting the Bay City Rollers around Ireland. But they were a band out of lockstep with the emerging punk scene, as they soon discovered. "There were times when we were in places we shouldn't have been at all," Kenny told Hot Press in 2003. "You'd sit down and look out at the audience and say, 'What the F*** are we doing here? There's 400 punks at the gig and here we are doing glam rock.'" Gimmick would break up within a few years. In 1983 Kenny joined Limerick's improvisational dance company, Theatre Omnibus. He was also becoming successful as a stand-up, carving out a career through sheer force of will at a time when Ireland was a comedy backwater. "I was on a stand-up circuit that did not exist," he remembered. "I was young and slightly insane. Here was me going around wearing TV sets around my head, riding pantomime horses. Once at a gig, I drove in on a Honda 50, down the audience." He crossed paths with Pat Shortt, from Turles, on the small Midwest comedy scene. Some of their earliest shows together were at Costello's Tavern in Limerick, where owner Flann Costello offered the scrappy duo a midweek gig aimed at students. They were soon packing the upstairs room, and after a memorable performance, as two confused Gardaí on Gabe Burns' Late Late Show, became a sensation across the country.